So you're not delivering value to your clients. Good news, you don't have to. Somebody else will for you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Perfect RIA podcast. I am your co-host, Matthew Jarvis, and with me, as usual, the man, the myth, the legend, none other, with his value sledgehammers, Micah Shalansky.
Wow, that's right. Jarvis, man, it feels like it's been forever. We kind of preview some episodes, as you know, as we get ready for Surge on the other side of it. So super excited to jump back into more frequent content creation for our listeners.
Now, speaking of the value sledgehammer, if you are not following us on social media, the Perfect RIA social media, Retirement Tax Services social media, my personal Matthew Jarvis on LinkedIn, you got to go back and look for how Micah gets ready in the morning. And let me just say, he checks for his keys and his wallet, his handgun, whatever else he needs to carry for a day in Alaska. And then there's something else that he's got to look for. And I was getting a pretty good laugh at those, Micah. It's how I imagined your morning, though, by the way.
Well, I mean, that's what I thought is like everyone knows this is how it goes, but I thought I would show that morning success ritual, right? Because we talk a lot about morning success rituals, but we don't talk about bringing the tools with you need to deliver value. So just make sure you guys are on top of it. That's the most important thing. Because Jarvis, well, I guess that's a lot what we have to talk about today. But before we kind of jump into that, we are super excited delivering more value to our members because we got sponsors. And one of the things that we're excited about with talking about our sponsors, these are companies that we like and that we use and we have either engaged in their services or we have learned from. So take a quick listen to our sponsors and the great things they have to offer for our audience.
Hey, everybody. Today's episode is brought to you by the Perfect RIA. How could it not be brought to you by the Perfect RIA? But if you enjoy these episodes, if you think that Micah and I, or at least Micah, have some great advice to give, head over to our website, theperfectria.com, and download one of our free guides towards making your practice better. So it's not just the things you hear on the podcast, it's the things that you implement. And if you're saying, you know what I'd really like to get in a room with Matt and Micah. I'd really like to ask them my own questions. I'd like to be coached by them. Then send an email to lifestyle@theperfectria.com, and one of our great team members will reach out to you and tell you more about the program. All right. Well, special thanks to our sponsors for allowing us to introduce ourselves as professional podcasters. I've never done that, actually. But as we joked about before our sponsor rule, the value sledgehammer. So it's so funny, Micah, you and I have been advocates of delivering massive value from our very first, our first episode, we were drunk. Our very second episode, we've been advocates of delivering value. And it's been misunderstood, right? There's been people that have accused us of beating clients with the sledgehammer of value. But we have to remember, like, as a practice, really as any kind of business, it's a value proposition, right? You need to bring value that is commensurate to the fee that's being paid, ideally multiples of that fee. And of course, you can get carried away with volume. You can confuse volume with value. And that's where I think there's a volume sledgehammer, which is any volume is worthless. But we're talking about delivering real value throughout the year in a consistent, repeatable fashion.
Well, did you just say there's a volume sledgehammer? It's like a volume feather, right? It's like absolutely nothing. It's like, here's a feather and go ahead and drive this nail, knock this building down. You're going to do absolutely nothing with this thing. That's a volume sledgehammer right there. Because you're sucking all the value. It's a valuectomy is what that is.
Yes.
You're sucking all the value out of that client relationship and not in a positive way because you're burying them with information versus streamlining information so clients can make decisions. Our job is not to make decisions for clients, right? When I'm working with our juniors, it's one of the things I bring up all the time. Look, we don't make these decisions for our clients. These are their decisions to make. It is our job to help them make an educated and informed decision. The way we do that is providing value. A way of that is the value adds. We're going to give them information in a great way that they can process and understand so they can help make the best decisions with their finances. And so you got to have a system. You got to have a process, dare I say, a process of success for being able to do that.
Yeah, so let's get really clear on this. We're going to talk specifically towards the 1099 value add that we do every year in January. Of course, if you are a member of one of our great coaching programs, a template of that is available so you can see how we're doing that. But for something to be a value add, it has to provide specific actionable advice to the client, right? So let's talk about taxes specifically. Sending clients a 20-page booklet on the new tax laws or whatever the case, that is not value. That is volume. As opposed to that, sending the 1099 letter that says, here is a list of your accounts through our office. Here is the tax document you can expect. Here is the information you need to give a CPA. And by the way, here's a second copy to give to your CPA. That is value. That's something the client can take, and take action on specific to them. There's no mystery like, what do I do with 20 pages on Secure 2.0? Oh, this I need to prepare my taxes.
Sure. Now, the way you can add value in a little dishwasher rule on top of that one, right, Jarvis? And I know you do this. It says, hey, Secure Act, I know this isn't new to our advisors, right? But we did this in the beginning of the year. It was like, hey, Secure Act 2.0 just passed. It was X amount of legislation and pages. Great news. We've deciphered that down for you. Here's the 2 pages information that you need to know. Here's your RMDs. Here how inherited RMDs blew up and your kids aren't going to get the money this way, right? And then here's how your heirs would inherit this money. Or if they have some grandfathered IRA accounts, right? Because they're before Secure 2.0, then we could jump in and say, great news. You can still do the stretch on here. The rules you're going to be hearing about doesn't apply. That applies to new inherited IRA accounts, which you don't have. So we could distill that information down to 1 to 2 pages. That is massive value.
Yeah, it has to translate to, here's a general idea, and here's what we're doing specifically for you. You have one of these, and we need to do something about it. You don't have one of these, you can ignore this. Congratulations. So, Micah, specific to the 1099 letter, let's take a little bit step back. Let's talk about the origins of the 1099 letter. So before you and I were doing the 1099 letters, and it's eerie the things that we learned how to do independently of each other before we'd even met each other. But what would happen around tax season?
We could both get tire shoes. It was pretty amazing.
Well, boy. It's a crapshoot sometimes. Before the 1099 letter, what would happen during tax season is clients or their tax preparers would call and they would say things like, hey, I didn't get a 1099 from my IRA account. And we'd say, well, that's because there was no distribution. And they'd say, well, I got one last year and my CPA says I need one this year. Or the reverse would happen, right, Micah?
Right.
We would have done a Roth conversion. They've never gotten a 1099 on that account before. They don't look at it, doesn't get reported. And so we have these problems. So this value add was created both, like all of them, to deliver value to clients, but also to create a method to streamline things for our own offices.
Yeah, and I was running into a pain point, right, in 2 things. One, when I used to prepare taxes, like I'd have to go to all these different places to get this information, so I could see the pain point from the CPA. Then the second pain point is I'd be reviewing a client's tax return that got done by somebody else, and they missed the IRA distribution, they missed the Roth conversion, they missed the estimated tax payments, right? All of these things. And it's like, all right, well, I generally got to be the bearer of bad news. Sometimes I'm the bearer of good news and be like, great news. We already withheld taxes for that, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm the bearer of bad news and I don't like to be in that position. So our hack for that was let's streamline this information. Now, Jarvis, I'd say a mistake that people are going to make when we get into value adds is they're going to see what we do. They assume it's easy because a couple of clowns online do it. So clearly it can't be that complex. And then they try to jump into it and they bite off more than they can chew. So one of the things, if you don't do value adds or you haven't done this value add yet, start small. Our value adds have evolved over time. It started off with just, hey, here's your accounts and here's the tax forms you may or may not get. That was kind of the first one, right? And then it was like, okay, well, the next year, what can we do better? It says, okay, well, here's the list of your accounts and here are the tax forms you're going to be getting or not getting for these accounts. And then we started adding dollar amounts and we started adding quarterly payments and we started saying, hey, this was a Roth conversion. Then we added transfers into it as well, saying, hey, from outside custodians, hey, TSP is going to send you a 1099. It started with just our custodian because that's all the information we could get. And then every year we decided to add a little bit more to it in a streamlined process. Do not make the mistake of saying, I'm going to do everything at once. You will blow up the value add.
Yeah, and the way that you'll blow it up is it'll be riddled with errors. And you'll be sending a client a value add that's wrong, which is infinitely worse than no value add at all. And I wish I could say I've never done that, but it's an ongoing process, right? There's a reason that so few advisors do value adds. It's because they're really difficult. They're not complicated per se, but they are difficult to do. It's the same reason why not very many people are in shape, right? It's not complicated to get in shape, but it's not easy either. Mike, so on that evolution comment, if you look at our 1099 template, which we have on our members portal, right, you'll see a couple of things. Like one that we added on years ago was, what is the tax filing deadline for that year? April 15th. Well, not every year, right? It moves, right? Depending on if it falls on a holiday. Also, what is the very last possible deadline for sending out 1099s, right? Because a client will get to January 7th. Hey, how come I haven't got my 1099 yet? Well, the deadline's not until whenever it is, and they're probably not going to send it until the day of the deadline.
And then you're going to get an amended one, by the way.
You'll get an amended one, yeah. And so these are kind of things that we've added. We added to our 1099 letter a warning about all of the IRS-related scams, the phishing scams related to this is the IRS calling. So now that's a warning on every 1099 letter that we do. So right, these are things that we've evolved into. But Micah, to your point, you've got to start simple And you've got to have a process for quality control.
I will say, and I want to get back to the start of this, like how do you start with it real fast? But one of the things that we're going to say, listen for feedback. One of the places you get feedback from is from third parties, not just clients or your team, but third parties. So now I'll have CPAs that'll reach out and be like, hey, Micah, I'm working with Bob and Sue and I didn't see their 1099 letter. Would you mind shooting that over to me? They like it, right?
Yes.
They see the QCDs, they see the Roth conversions, they see estimated tax payments, they see the transfers, right? They're like, hey, I want that inventory list that's going to be there. This was handy last year. I'd really like to see it again. So Jarvis, let's go ahead and step back just a little bit. There's a couple of key points I'm looking at here about starting value adds. Then maybe we could dive a little bit more into the 1099 and getting queued up for this year. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. So I would really say starting value add, you need to think about what is it I'm trying to accomplish, right? Let's start with the end in mind. Specific to the 1099 letter, I'm trying to make the...
I'm so sorry. Can I back up just a little bit before that one?
Yeah.
Okay. Before that, start. Just make a friggin' commitment and start, right? Say this week, it's Monday. This week, I am going to get X outlined, right? Not done. I am going to get X value add outlined and I am going to execute it on this date. It's going to my clients. The first thing you need to do is start. If you start thinking, oh, I might do this value add or this value add, right? That's not going to be helpful. You got to take action with it. Sorry. All right.
No, I'm glad you would point that out because there was you remember the old sales trainer, Bob Dunwoody, right? Bob Dunwoody's great stuff. Boy, by the way, if you don't listen to like sales training CDs and tapes, or I guess they're all MP3s now.
From way back.
You're missing the game. So, but Bob Dunwoody, he once said, you should never ask successful people how they became successful because they don't know.
They don't know.
And he famously gave the example, if you ask a top, insurance sales guy, how did you get to the top? I just go out and I see the people. So, but this is an interesting example, right? So I'm just saying, hey, listen, get cranking on your value add. But now that you mentioned that, Micah, so what we do in our team every quarter is we say, hey, by what date will our next value add be out in the mail or email? Okay, well, let's say it's January 10th. Okay, so then by when do they need to be generated so the advisors can do quality control? By when does the data have to be in the system? By when does the spreadsheet have to be complete? By when do the downloads? We're backing all the way back. So to your point, what you're working on this week is you need to map that over a calendar. Because if you tell yourself, I'm going to do 1/5 of it every week for 5 weeks, and then there's the week of Christmas and you're not going to get anything done, this isn't going to work, right? So yeah, you've got to map this on your calendar with hard deadlines.
Yeah, amen. So you first got to start with it. And then I'm going to jump in and say, don't overcomplicate it, right? We talked about that a little bit before. I'm going to echo that one again. Make it simple, make it achievable for your team to do it. And then first, you need to figure out where you're going to get the data from. But after you get the data in that rough draft format, you have to run it on yourself and then your team first, right? Even if it's in rough draft format, I want my team to run it on their own personal accounts because then they know it. When my receptionist gets a call from a new client and they say, what's this 1099 letter I received? And the receptionist goes, what 1099 letter? I don't know why we send it out. That's not value, right? However, if I can walk through on her end and saying, great news, here, remember, this is your 401k you set up, and here's how these forms are going to work, and here's this 5498, and yada, yada, yada. And now she can see how it affects her. She's like, oh my gosh, that 1099 letter is fantastic. Here's how it's going to help you with taxes. You're totally shifting that dynamic from just on you as the advisor and pulling your entire team along with you to help with that.
Yeah, and it really helps to, I know you do this, Micah, role play that out, right? So what other questions could the client get when they receive this? It never came in the mail. Where do I get it? Oh, great news. They're all available online. Where online? Well, on the portal. Where in the portal? I don't know my login, right? To run through that and not to the point, this can kind of seem like we're taking this to some extreme destination, but we've all had clients that say, what portal? Well, the custodian's portal. I've never logged into it before. You've had an account there for 5, I've never logged in. Okay, well, great news. Let's turn on Zoom. Let's do a Google Meet. Let's log in together. Obviously, you type in the credentials because otherwise that's custody on my part. And let's go through. Oh, here it is. Great. Let's download it. Do you want me to send it directly to you, or do you want me to send it to your CPA? Right. So there's a system you need to have. Of course, now we open the whole the can of worms of, are you going to email an unencrypted PDF? Wait a second. Now we have a problem, right? So this definitely gets out there.
Yeah, gets out there quick. All right, so Jarvis, sorry, I wanted to step back a little bit, right? You got to start,
please.
Right? Then you got to not overcomplicate it. Then you got to kind of do it on yourself, right? But then I loved your concept on the timelines that's going to be there and getting everything set up. I think a pain point is there when people design these as well, is not reaching out to whoever holds the data sooner. Right? So if you're getting 1099 data, for example, don't wait. So if you're listening now in December, don't wait till January and request the 1099 data from Schwab. Request it now. Now, Micah, do they have data out? No, requested for last year. Have some data you can dump in the system and see how is this actually going to work, because you're going to get a whole big ball of crap from the custodian and have to go back once or twice in order to really refine what you need in that value add. We have found with Schwab in their automatic download center, you can't download the information we need for our beneficiary reports and not all of it for the 1099. We have to contact them, and it takes them 7 days to send it to us. Okay, now we know this, right? So we're going to contact them in advance, and we're going to really walk through all the columns that we need in our spreadsheet. If I waited till January for that, Jarvis, as you already know, I would completely blow past and miss when I want to send that 1099 letter out.
Yeah, you really can. Of course, you also got to think about, like, what about accounts that are closed through the middle of the year? That's an easy one to miss, right? If you look and say just accounts that are open as of 12/31, what if they closed an account? So you have to have ways to catch those. I would say an easier first version of the 1099 letter is just to send a client a list of accounts that they have or have had through your office.
Yes.
And say, hey, if you need any help getting tax documents for these accounts, give our office a call. We'll be glad to help. Is that as good as here's everything that happened? Here's the exact. No, it's not. Yeah. Is it 100 times better than nothing? It is, yeah, because you've outreached, you've delivered value saying, here's the accounts you have through our office. If you need help, reach out to us. Does the client already have permission to reach out to you? Yes, they can do whatever the heck they want. But by giving them permission, right? This is the dishwasher rule. Hey, we are here to help. Please never hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, these are so important things to make sure that we're going ahead and we're putting on, right? Now, one of the things that you're going to potentially run into as you start doing this is a lot of work. And sometimes with a lot of work, we need to staff up. We need to bring in someone else as well in order to help take on some of this load. And that's where one of our sponsors, Belay, can come in and helping you bring in some virtual assistants, some executive assistants in order to help with this load. So on that note, let's take a little break for our sponsors real fast so they can kind of come in and talk about value that they can deliver to your firm.
Hey everybody, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Belay. You know, the best part of having a virtual assistant from Belay is not the things that they get done that you were already going to do. That is valuable, by the way. It's that list of things that, if we're being honest, you need to get to and you're just never going to get it done. Like that doctor's appointment you keep meaning to schedule, or the contractor you need to find for your house to fix that leaky thing, or the flowers you keep meaning to send to your wife. Those are all things that you can give your Belay virtual assistant so that they get done, because we know that, if we're being honest, they're probably not going to get done. Now, how are they going to get done? Because Belay finds virtual assistants, including my own virtual assistant, who are masters at working down task lists. They're masters at taking one step ahead of what you're already thinking, right? Reach out to Belay, text the letters RIA to 55123 to get a free copy of their ebook. More importantly, to get introduced to my good friend Teresa, who's going to see if you're a good fit for a virtual assistant. Not everyone is. And then find a virtual assistant who's perfectly matched to your needs. So text the letters RIA to 55123. And now back to the episode. Alrighty, welcome back. So let's look a little bit more at this 1099 letter. So Micah, as you commented, the first one that you're going to do is your own, literally your own. You're going to take it all the way to the end. Your accounts. Wait. You don't have the same accounts that your clients have? That's a whole nother episode. We have a big problem. But you're going to go all the way through on your own. And then what I would recommend is you do the first 5 clients on your own. If you've never done this value add before, do the first 5 100% on your own. To Micah, to your point, download the data, see what it looks like, figure out how you're going to get it into Excel or into Infinity, your CRM, whatever you're going to use, figure out how to generate the whole thing so that you see how it works. Then you can go to the team. Then you have the team do 5 of them and then have them show you. What I've had happen, Mike, and I know you would never do this, is I give it to the team. They get to number 180 and I say, guys, we missed this big thing. And they say, well, Jarvis, you never told us about this. I know, and that's on me, but we're all going to go back and we got to fix this. So do your own, do the first 5. Your team does 5. Then we go back and we look and say, all right, how is this working? Is it getting the results that we want? Is quality control there? How do we make it more efficient, et cetera?
Well, Jarvis, this sounds like a crap ton of work.
Yeah, you know, and somehow, Micah, by the way, somehow I still managed to take 6 months vacation a year. And so that's sort of the irony to me of this. People say, I don't have time to do these values. What else are you doing? What else? Yes, it's work.
So, but this is a really important thing to think about though, right? Is this work? Yes. Is this playing office? No, this has a direct impact in clients' lives, right? Now, Jarvis, I also think this is preloading work in volume, almost like Surge does, right? Versus spreading it out over a long period of time. One of the things I've noticed with sending out the 1099 letter, I get less questions from clients about 1099s, about taxes, about these other documents. So yeah, we're putting the work in advance, but we get to choose, we get to be proactive, we get to choose when to put that work part in. Then we get to have the work get rolled out, right? So it's putting us more in control and delivering more value to clients. So super important you always do that.
Yeah, I guess that really comes down to, one of the core premises of the value add. Same with Surge Schedule, by the way, is do I want to be intentional and in control of this experience, or do I want to be reactive? And it's always harder to be reactive. It's always less valuable to be reactive. So again, you just kind of decide, hey, this work is going to have to be done. It's either going to be done in the form of an intentional value add, like the 1099 letter, or it's going to be done in the form of reacting to clients' calls, fixing mistakes on tax returns, getting fewer referrals from centers of influence, having a lower retention rate, having more head trash so you're not actually delivering value to clients. Like there's this whole cascading issue that comes from choosing to not do value adds.
The other part of this really sets up your team for success with a 37-point checklist, right? Now, if you haven't got that from Retirement Tax Services, I got to say, we use it all of the time. The number one thing I use from them all the time is their tax guide. It's always on my desk. In fact, it's laminated on my desk, even at my home office right now.
Got it right here.
Right? So I'm always using that guide as a reference. But the second thing that I probably use the most is that 37-point checklist. By I mean my team. And I have my team run through that. But the 1099 letter, Jarvis, is in conjunction with that, which makes the job so much easier. When we're reviewing a client's tax return, right, we get to see really quickly, hey, are the things lining up? We've all reviewed returns. Well, when the friggin' CPA puts the pension and IRA distributions on the same line, which just annoys the crap out of me. Check the right damn box. But anyways, right, doesn't change the tax effect. But now I'm like, well, crap, there's an extra $30,000 here. Where does it go? And now I get to look at this 1099 letter and I can start doing the math up and adding those things to make sure the client is taken care of. So again, this 1099 letter is not just delivering value to the clients, it's great for your team to use later in reviewing tax returns to make sure they're accurate.
Excuse me, we could do an entire episode on all the different value adds, right? Like I'm taking the 1099 letter to my CPAs and I'm saying, hey, I'd love to pay for an hour of your time to help me make this more useful for you and for the client, right? I'm bringing this to my Q1 Surge meetings, right? Hey, I want to make sure you got this. You have any questions on your taxes? This is one of the things we do for you. There's so many pieces of just this one value add. And of course, we're going to do at least 4 during the year, 4 very intentional value adds, but this is just one.
All right, Jarvis, I got a question for you.
Ooh.
So you have a client, they're a new client. They haven't transferred accounts over to you yet, or maybe they're in between. Let's do a couple scenarios. They haven't transferred any accounts over to you yet, but they're a new client. Do you send them a 1099 letter or not?
So I send everyone a 1099 letter who's a client. And same with if we're doing year-end tax planning, we don't have their tax return. We have a version of that says, hey, we didn't have any accounts open, or this is something we're going to do for you in the future. So we do have, I don't take the time necessarily to research those other accounts because I don't want someone to go a quarter without getting a value add. So the value add might be like, hey, listen, we would have done this, but we can't. Help us out, help you. But I'm going to do it either way.
Absolutely. And this shows another benefit for why you should have the accounts, right? It's saying, well, look, this is one of the things we get to take care of for you when we see this information. We also don't do this on accounts that we don't custody. Right now, if we're transferring accounts that are in, so like a TSP into an IRA, we're definitely going to put that as an incoming transfer. You got to keep a log of it anyways. We just have it in a way in our CRM that we can pull that and add it to the 1099 letter. Again, that's more of an advanced version. Also, I'll do it for those ones. But if a client has an outside account for any reason, I'm not going to add that to my 1099 letter. That's a hard pass. If we don't have control over it, we're not adding it in.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. All right. Well, this podcast, like all of our podcasts, is about taking action, right? It's only the things that you do, not the things that you know or you think about that count. So let's start action item number 1, assuming that you are going to do the 1099 as your value add. You need to get started on that. Now, if you say, hey, the 1099 letter doesn't really make sense for me, perfect. Pick whatever your January value add is, map that thing out. You've only got a handful of weeks. Well, we have 4 weeks, 5 weeks to get this thing done. You've got to get that mapped out and get started on it.
I love it. This is absolutely critical. I would say the other thing to do, if you haven't done it already, get your team on board, right? It's easy to come out from one aspect says, damn it, I pay you, do what I say. And that is definitely one approach. But the other one is saying, hey, I really want my team members to see the value of this and to bring them along with me. Because if I'm bringing them along with me, while it's like a little bit more work up front, it's going to be a much better outcome. And they're going to be able to see things you don't see. For example, hey, Micah, we can't get all that data from this place, because of these other problems. Okay, I
Sure.
don't do the operation stuff, right? There's things like that I'm not going to see. Or Micah, you know what? We're making quarterly tax payments for clients. Do you think we should add that one on there? That came from a team member, right? All of these great things because I'm bringing them along. So make sure you have that conversation with them about why. And also, it's so much work. And in the middle of it, when they're complaining about how much work it is, you can say, yeah, but remember when we talked about, we all agreed this was so valuable to the client. It was worth the energy and the time to do it.
I love it. Mike, actually, I remember 3 in my mind. These are incredibly difficult to do. They're nearly impossible to do from scratch. Now, they're not impossible. You and I figured them out from scratch. No one was doing them. No one showed us these value adds. It's much, much, much easier to find an existing template, to find an existing system. So if you are a member of the Backstage Pass or Invictus coaching programs, you can log into the portal and see templates on how we're doing these. You can see the actual 1099 letters that you can adapt for your level of complexity for your client base. Again, I would not try to do these from scratch. It is very, very difficult to do. It took us a lot of years to figure that out.
I love it. Jarvis, this is always a blast to jump in and to talk about and to go through, right? Again, it's all about action items. We talked about the things that you need to do this week in order to improve your practice, but it's work, right? You could look at it and say, oh my gosh, it looks like Mike and Matt don't do anything, which is one perception, but it is not the reality. There's a crap load of work that comes into being successful and delivering value to the clients, but it's all things in your control. It's all things you can do. So get out there, crush these value adds, make a difference in your clients' lives. And until next time, happy planning.
Hey, before you leave, a quick word from our sponsors. Hey, everybody, I want you to take a quick look around your office, and on your desk, there should be the Retirement Tax Services Desktop Tax Guide. And if it's not there, or if it's not current, meaning you didn't download it in the last month, go to retirementtaxservices.com and download the Desktop Tax Guide. This is a must-have resource for every financial advisor committed to tax planning.
Information designed to change lives. Financial planning can make you